morning, dear hearts. We're now in lesson 167, and please subscribe. And today's lesson emphasizes the one number that we must realize is within the entire course, and that one number is 1. Today's lesson, there is one life, and that I share with God. Now, the number 1 is emphasized in many, many other lessons. There is no love but God's. There is one love. There is no will but God's. There is one will. And today there is one life, and that I share with God. There are not different kinds of life, for life is like the truth. There is one truth as well. It does not have degrees. It does not have levels either. It is the only condition in which all that God created share. Like all his thoughts, that includes us, it has no opposite. There is no death, because what God created shares his life. There is no death, because an opposite to God does not exist. There is no death, because the Father and the Son are one. Remember, we had a lesson recently. There is no death. The Son of God is free. And in that lesson, I gave you the new idea that death is not the lack of breath, but it is the lack of joy. And this lesson continues and states that as well. In this world, there appears to be a state that is life's opposite. You call it death, yet we have learned that the idea of death takes many forms. It is the one idea which underlies all feelings that are not supremely happy. It is the alarm to which you give response of any kind that is not perfect joy. See, it's the lack of joy. It isn't the breath in and out. It has nothing to do with the body and with the lungs. All sorrow, loss, anxiety, and suffering and pain, even a little sigh of weariness, a slight discomfort, or the merest frown, acknowledge death, and thus deny you live. We are either alive or we are not. Now, one of the things in this lesson tells us there are 2 states of the mind, and it is mind awake or mind asleep. Mind awake is life. Mind asleep thinks it might be death. The emphasis, you think that death is of the body, which I just said, and it is not. Okay, it's but an idea relevant to what you seen as physical. But its origin is where it must be changed. If change occurs, ideas leave not their source. Again, this is the central idea, and then it tells you the emphasis this course has placed on that idea is due to its centrality in our attempts to change your mind about yourself. It is the reason you can heal. It is the cause of healing. It is why you cannot die. Its truth established you as one with God. We are always part of God. We are always part of God, but we are always part of the source of the thought that has thought us. And our thoughts are always going to be the extension or the projection of the thought that we are having. If I am having thoughts of death, those thoughts are coming from my ego mind, and those thoughts will not leave their source either. The thought never leaves its source. Because we are a thought from God, we do not leave his source, our source. We are always there, whether or not we think we are. And that is the condition of being in this world. Even though ideas cannot leave their source in this world with the ego, it projects a thought system trying to tell us that ideas indeed can leave their source. But that is all about the smoke and the mirrors and the control that the ego would like to have over us. We have to see that what is the origin of that thought. And if it's not a thought that is supremely happy and joyful, then we know it is not of God. Death cannot come from life Ideas remain united to their source. It states it many times throughout this lesson because it is so important that we understand that. And then the lesson goes on to talking about mind asleep or mind awake. The mind can think it sleeps, but that is all. It cannot change what is its waking state. We are created mind awake. We can be mistaken and think we sleep. The mind does not make the body. God's mind, our source, did not make the body, and it doesn't abide in a body. What is alien to the mind does not exist because it has no source. The ego mind has conjured up all of these things. We have spent an awful lot of time believing in their reality, but in truth, they have none. Going back, I haven't done that yet, going back to our first 50 lessons, we had lesson 30, that God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. Now that lesson does not state that ideas leave not their source, but it is certainly implied because everything I see is coming from the idea, the truth that God is in my mind. And whatever I now see is coming from that thought of God's mind, and I am that thought in God's mind. The opposite of life can only be another form of life. As such, it can be reconciled with what created it because it is not opposite in truth. And the lesson, the previous sentence says, paragraph, what seems to die is but the sign of mind asleep. God created only mind awake. He does not sleep, and his creations cannot share what he gives not. Our mind really cannot be asleep because we are the extension of God's mind. We do not leave our source, and because God's mind does not sleep, neither can ours. And we cannot share what he gives not, nor make conditions which he does not share with them. So in truth, we can't make these things up. There's one truth, one life, one love, one will. But again, because it is not real, does not mean that we cannot think it is real. This course is about us coming back to the idea and the knowing of we are mind awake, we are mind in mind, of mind, God's mind. And that is where we reside. That is where we abide. And it says what is opposite is merely sleeping. In dreams of time, an interval in which seems to happen never occurred. The changes wrought are substanceless, and all events are nowhere. And this is what happens when we think we go to sleep. But then when we wake up, we don't think in this world. We put our head on the pillow, we wake up. We don't think that all of those dreams are real. That's what we have to realize, that in mind, we are having a sleeping experience. But when our mind wakes up, we will realize we are back with God. We never left. And all of those fantastical illusions never really happened. Today, the lesson says, let us today be children of the truth and not deny our holy heritage. Ask not for death in any form today. Do not ask for the slightest bit of sorrow or angst or weariness or pain. Do not ask for any of that, even the merest frown or a sigh. Don't ask for that. We are moving away from our happiness and our joy when we experience or believe we want to experience any of these things that are totally and completely opposite to God. In his thought, which have no opposite, we understand there is one life and that we share with him, with all creation, with their thoughts as well, whom he created in a unity of life that cannot separate in death and leave the source of life from where it came. There is no separation, not even in death, as we think we experience it here, because in truth, there is no life, no death. There is only another form of life. And for the wakened mind is one that knows its source, itself, its holiness. So today, let us realize there is one mind, one truth, one will, one love, one life. We are only God's thoughts. There is a unity of life. There is one problem which had one solution. There is one name, and we call upon that name. It is God, it is ourself. There is one self, there is one holy thought, and that we share. There is one brother who is all brothers, and one is truly all that we need, because one is enough. And that's it for today. I hope this helped. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please comment. Please be here tomorrow. It's a beautiful lesson about grace. Namaste. Oh, and I didn't say pray. Like, share, subscribe, comment, pray. Namaste.